everybody, and welcome back to Sew Along with Jan and part 3 of the August Kimberbell Mini Quilt. So we're going to put our little quilt together in this video, and I've got all my pieces here, so we'll go over what all these are again because we kind of touched on them in the first video. But we have our backing. It's 14 by 14, and then I like to put a piece of the shape flex on the back. So I've got that on the back of it to give me a little bit of body. So when you go to stitch in the ditch, it doesn't wrinkle the backing all up. So I've got my little piece of backing here and my shape flex on that. So that's my backing. Oops, sorry, I keep bouncing the camera for you. And let's see, I have prepared my binding. My binding is 2 1/4 inches instead of 2 1/2, just so you know. And I prepared it, as normal. I sewed it together and then folded it in half. So I've got that all ready to go here. And then we have our little sleeve. Now the sleeve is something that I've added to these so that I wanted to put this in my little stand or in one of those little the little hangers. So I wanted a sleeve on the back of mine. So the sleeve is 6 inches wide and 12 inches long. Then what I did is I marked in 1/2 inch on each side of this top piece here, and then I drew a line and used my ruler down to the bottom corner. Okay, so the top part then is going to be 11 inches and the bottom is 12. So that way, and I trim that off, so that gives us it's 11 inches on the one side and 12 inches on the other. And then I'm going to roll this in on either side, a 1/2 inch and a 1/2 inch again. And I'll go ahead and hem that quickly in a little bit. And then when we go to put this on the back of the little quilt, it's going to be like this. So the skinnier side is going to be on underneath. And what that does, by cutting that off an inch, 1/2 inch on each side, it keeps these seam allowances, these hems, from being so bulky on the edges, and it keeps it nice and flat. So that's our little sleeve, and I have to hem it yet. And then you have to make the little, this is the little towel, and the towel instructions are on page 14, and all you do is take it, it's 5 by 4, and all you do is take it and sew at the top. You fold it the 5-inch way in half, and then you sew 1/4 inch at the top and the bottom, and then just turn it right side out. And there's going to be one open edge, but we're going to be rolling this from like this bottom corner here and rolling it up. And then this is the part that'll show at the top, and this will be down inside the bag. So this will just be left open. So we'll go through that in a little bit at the end too. But this was a very simple little thing, and it's on page 14 of the instructions how to do it. So you just you just do a 1/4 inch seam at the top and the bottom. You fold it in the 5-inch, so it's 2 1/2 inches wide here, and then right sides together, flip it over, and then just press it. So that's going to be the little towel. Okay, and then we got all of our little blocks. So here's all of our little blocks. My little bag is all dry now, so the little handle is all stiffer now. So then we're going to put our little towel inside this bag here. Okay. All right, so we got all of our little blocks, all of the pieces we need. I'm going to hem this again, this little, the ends of my little sleeve here. And then we're going to put our blocks together first, and then we're going to stitch in the ditch, put the back on, and then we're going to put our binding on. So give me just a moment. I'm going to turn the camera off for just a moment and do my quick hems here so this is ready to go. And then I will be back and we'll start assembling our quilt. Okay, so we're going to get ready to put our blocks together here. We're going to do this with a 1/4 inch seam. And we've already quilted the 2 little filler blocks, so we already did that. So then we're going to put together all of our little blocks. So we're going to start with those 2 little filler blocks. We're going to put the yellow one on top and then the pink one. So let's start with those. I just have some white Pima cotton thread in my machine and needle, or my needle and my bobbin, and I'm going to use Q02 to get my 1/4 inch seam. I'm going to use my J foot to do my 1/4 inch seam. So then we're going to do, let's see, so the yellow one goes on top. Now mine, I want to make sure my little umbrella is kind of upright, so I thought I'd Make sure that looks like that. And then this one, I don't think it matters which way it goes. It could go this way. I can't really see in the picture which way they have the waves going. I think either way would be fine. You could go this way or this way. I think we'll do it this way. Okay. So I'm going to put these right sides together, and we're going to sew these together with a 1/4" seam first. Might need a pin though. Grab a pin here. These are a little, they scoot a little bit with the batting in there, so I like to pin them. All right, so let's go ahead and sew these together. With our 1/4" seam. Okay, and then we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna press these open. We're always gonna press our seams open on these so that they lay nice and flat. So I'm gonna go press these open because then we're gonna sew this to our little bag block, and the two of them need to be on the bag block like this. So give me a second here, and we will get the open. I'm gonna open my seams up with the iron here. So I'll be right back. Here we go. All right, whoops. Except it landed on the floor. Okay, here we go. So we're going to do this. Okay. So that, now this piece is going to go here, and it goes on the, yeah, it goes on the left. I'm looking at the pictures on page 13. So we're going to put it over here. And then these two pieces are going to sew onto this block. Get it on there straight, hopefully. I put a couple of pins on this one. I like to pin and keep those little, seams from flipping open on me so that they don't get bulky. All right, so then we'll do this one. There weren't too many blocks in this one to sew together, so it makes it nice. And they always give really good instructions about the order to sew them together in, so you get everything right. So let me get my head of my pins out of here. Okay. This is so cute. Hopefully I didn't sew my umbrella upside down. We'll see. I've done that before. All right. Let's see how these look. Ooh, good. I got my umbrella right side up. Okay, so there's my little blocks with the wave and the umbrella on it. So I'm going to go and press these open real quickly. And then the next block is going to be, oh, it's going to have the swimsuit one at the bottom. So let me press this seam open. And again, press these open so that they're nice and flat when you go to stitch in the ditch. Okay, so I'm going to go press those open real quick. All right, so there is our first block section. That looks really nice. And then we're going to put our bathing suit on the bottom of this one. So we'll get the bathing suit one here. Got little lint all over everything. I just thought that was really cute. I love the way they did the umbrella. Okay, so this is going to go on the bottom then. This is going to go on down here. So we'll get that lined up. I think I'll put a couple pins in this little seam again to keep it from flipping over on me. I like them to be nice and flat. And then we'll do the other side. So there's just like two sides. We'll do the flamingo and the, what is it? Oh, it's the dip into summer. Goes on the other side. Might need one over here too. And we'll press that. Get this one. Using Q02 on my machine. So most of the Brother Baby Lock machines have a Q tab if they have a touch screen. So that's where that piecing stitch is. Makes it easier, then I don't have to change the foot. All right, so there is that. So I think I'll sew together the other blocks and then I'll do the last bit of the pressing. There we go. Hopefully I did it right. There we go. Oh my gosh, isn't that going to be cute? I like the blues together. All right, so then I'm going to put that up here, and then these two together are going to go together. So we got the flamingo's going to be on the top. I don't know where all my lint came from. There we go. The flamingo's going to be on the top, and the dip into summer is going to be on the bottom. So we're going to flip these over here and pin these. I put at least one pin in there. There's no seam in this one, so that's nice. All right, so we'll get these on. When I do the sewing part of this, I have to get up and iron more often than I do with the embroidery. So, okay, doing my 1/4 inch seam. Okay. And then I'm going to press these open. So this one needs to be pressed open here, and then this one up here. And then we'll put the two halves together and we'll have it all together already. So give me a moment. I'll be right back. I'll do the pressing and then we'll do the last seam. And just a reminder, when you're pressing on this, be careful of your vinyl. I almost melted my vinyl, so I was pressing from the back, so it should be okay. And I did notice just a teeny little wrinkle in there, but I think it'll be okay. Be very careful of the vinyl. That's why I love the vinyl. I love the look of it, but you have to be so careful with the iron because it's so easy to just touch it and it'll literally just melt it away. So, okay, so now I think I need to turn the page though. Let me get my page turned here. I think we're ready to put, the last 2 rows together, and then we're going to do the backing. Okay, so we're going to put this one goes over here, so it's like this. Oh, yay, and there's no seams to line up. That's always nice. I like it when I don't have to line up the seams. All right, so let's put a couple pins in here. Pin our little seams open here. This is going to be a cute one. I'm not much of a beach person, but I like summer stuff, so I thought this was really cute. Obviously, I live in Iowa, so I'm a landlubber, right? So we don't have a lot of beaches here. We do have some in some of the state parks and stuff have beaches though along the river, so it's kind of fun to go swimming every now and then. I don't go swimming very often, but I love flamingos. That's why I really liked this one. I like the flamingo. Yeah, I'll put a pin in here. Oops. There we go. So now I'm going to use my 1/4 inch and we're going to get this one done, and then we'll be ready to put it together. How exciting. This is such a cute one. I've really enjoyed doing these. I hope you guys are enjoying the videos. They've been so much fun to do. Something different, and I really like having seasonal stuff, like monthly seasonal things to hang up and that kind of stuff. And I just saw these and I thought we have to do them. Barely got the new video or the new CD though in time. I was worried that we weren't going to be able to get our July one done very early, but we got them. They came about a week early is all. All right, so then take these out, and then I'm going to press this seam, and then we're going to be ready to start putting the backing on. So here's my little finished top. Isn't that cute? I think I saved my vinyl. I think we're going to be okay with the vinyl. It just got a little steamed. It's okay. I always worry about that when I put vinyl on and I put the iron down. I'm like, oh no, I got a little close. You have to just be real careful. So, all right, so there we go. I'm going to go press this open, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to put our backing on. Okay, so I've got it all pressed out. Again, be careful of your vinyl and the vinyl up here. So I got it all pressed. Here's the back. And we're ready to do the stitching in the ditch. This one didn't lay down too flat where that big piece of satin stitch was, but I think it'll be okay when we go to sew it. Okay, so I need to get my bobbin in here. I'm switching over to Mettler Transfill to do my stitching in the ditch so that it doesn't show. So I've got my Mettler Transfill, which is a monofilament. And I got it on my bobbin too. I only have a very small amount on the bobbin, maybe about, I think there's about a quarter of a bobbin or so. I may have to wind a little bit more before I go to do the, binding. I'm trying to think of the word. Sorry guys, it's kind of early in the morning for me, so I'm trying to get this video done, and I'm running a little behind today, I think. Okay, so now the first thing we need to do is get our backing on. So I've got my basting pins over here in my little jar, and I'm going to do just a couple of pins here at the sewing machine so you can see it, but I'm just going to lay my little top in the middle of my 14-inch square. Try to get it, as close as you can so that it's pretty even all the way around. Okay? And then I'm going to pin base this in place. So what I like to do is kind of start in the center, and then I like to put my pins, and I'm going to do the rest of this over at my cutting table. It's a little hard here on the sewing machine, but I like to kind of start in the middle and then try to keep your pins away from the seam where you're going to be stitching down so that you don't have to move the pins. Then you can just leave them in until you're done. So I'm just going to do all of my pinning around here, and I kind of work from the outside or the inside to the outside, and then I'll be back in a minute and we'll do all of the stitching in the ditch. Okay, so I've got all my pin basting done. It's just a little easier to do that on the table instead of front of you, but you can see how I've tried to keep away from my seams so that I won't have to move the pins when I'm stitching. So, all right, so we're ready to start the stitching in the ditch. Let me get these pins up here. Otherwise I'll be dumping them on the floor for sure. All right, so I'm going to start in the middle here. I like to kind of start towards the center, and we're going to start in the middle. And I'm going to use my J foot, and you can use a stitch in the ditch foot if that's what you prefer. I'm going to put my needle in the center though, which I forgot to do, and that's Q01 on that same Q tab. So I've got my needle in the center needle position. But this J foot has a little notch on it right here in the center of the foot, and I can focus on that notch to help me go down the ditch. And that seems to work better for me than the stitch in the ditch foot. So whichever works for you, please use whatever works best for you. So I'm just going to tie this off. I've got my little notch lined up on my ditch here, and I'm just going to, and oh, you know what? I'm going to also increase the length of my stitch a little bit to 3.0. I usually have it at 2.5. Let's make it just a little longer so that it goes through some of this bulk better. All right, so we're going to do, just go right down the seam line. And you want to kind of start in the center and work your way outward. And there's not too many seams in this one, so there's only just the center seam and then two other ones. But we'll go all the way around the outside edge too. Oops. Must be stuck on something back here. I've got stuff sitting behind my machine here. Come on, there he goes. Didn't like that bump very well. These machines have something called automatic height adjustment, so they don't do that very often. They feed very, very well. I really notice when I sit down at different machines how they feed, because I'm so used to this machine feeding so well. Okay, so we got all the way down that ditch. I think we only have two more to do. So we have this one here and this one up here. So let's do this bottom one. We'll do the same thing. So I'm going to go right to where I stitched down, and I'm going to get my notch right on my little seam there. And we'll tie it off there in the center. And then we're going to move out to this side. Again, I've got my stitch length at 3 just to make it a little bit longer to go through the bulk. And then out to the center, and then out to the outside edge, and we'll go ahead and tie this off too. Okay, and then we got one more to do. This one didn't have too many. All right, and then we'll do this one. I think it's easier to work from the inside, so I think I'll flip it over. And we'll work from the inside here to the outside. Get this all lined up with my notch. And then I'll tie off in the center here. And then right up the seam. There we go. Hopefully I don't think I unthreaded it. Nope, I don't think so. No, I think it's okay. But maybe it unthreaded on me. Monofilament is a little stretchy, so it sometimes unthreads. But this transfill, I've tried lots of different monofilaments, and this is so much easier, and it works in the bobbin. Some of them just, you cannot put it in the bobbin. But this one works very well in the bobbin. All right. So I think we got it. Let's turn it over and see. Oh, I got a little tail here. We'll get that tail. How about, is there a tail up here too? You can't really see them. You can feel them though. Oh, there's a tail back here. There we go. Let's turn it over and see how we did. I think we did it. So here's the one down the middle. Here's the one on this side, and here's the one on this side. So I think we did it. Now I'm going to go around the outside edge because I like to hold my edges down to my backing. So I'm going to go back to, I'm going to leave the needle in the center because I'm going to use, there's two notches actually on this foot. So this one over here on the right, if I lay that along the edge of my fabric here, that's with the needle in the center, that's about 1/8 of an inch. So it's like a top stitch. So that's what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and just, let's see, I'm going to start at a corner so it's easier for me to remember where I started since this is monofilament. Okay, and I'm just going to tie this off, and then we're going to go around the whole outside edge, and I'm using that little notch on the right, it's on the very edge of the zigzag opening, and that will give me about 1/8 of an inch top stitch. So this is how I top stitch too, when I'm doing top stitching like on clothes or something. I've always used that notch to help me. And this way, this monofilament won't show like in our seam for our binding when we go to put it on. I'm doing better. I remembered the word binding now. Sometimes in the morning it's hard for me to video. I have to wait until a little later to start videoing. So, okay, so we're going to go ahead and stop about 1/8 of an inch from the end, turn it around, and then we're going to go, make sure none of our pins are in the way here. Go around each 4 sides, then it'll just hold everything together nicely so when we go to put our binding on, nothing's flipping around on us. This is going to be so cute. The binding is that stripe, so I did have the actual binding that they used. I didn't have all the fabrics, but I did have a lot of the same colors. So you don't have to use the fabric that's in. It's fun to get kits because I'm sure there's plenty of kits for these, but I've just been kind of using stuff I have, and so it's been fun to see how mine turn out differently. Get this down here. I think we have one more side to do. So I'm just using that little notch on the right hand side to give me about 1/8 of an inch seam. Okay, one more turn here. I have my pivot feature on too. Did you see how my foot goes up and my needle goes down? And I'll show you on the machine where that is. If you don't have your pivot, I like the pivot really well. So it's right here. It looks like a foot with a needle through it. Some of the machines it'll be in a slightly different place, but that's usually where it is, approximately down towards the bottom of the screen usually. All right, and I like that because then when you step down, did you notice how the foot went down then? So I didn't have to press a bunch of buttons to get it to go up and down. And I like that. All right, so I think we're good. Oh, good. We're just about to the end here. Looks like everything's going to line up nicely. All right, we'll just tie off over here. And we got all the way around the outside edge. And I did that with the monofilament because it was in the machine. I am going to switch back to probably a regular thread to put my binding on. But there is our little top. Isn't that cute? And then what we want to do next is I'm going to take this over to my cutting table, and I'm just going to cut my backing right up to, I'm just going to use my straight edge and cut my backing up right up flush to the front of the quilt. And then we'll be ready to put on the binding. But isn't that adorable? I really liked the bathing suit block and the flamingo block. So, all right, I'll be right back once I get my trimming done and we're ready to start the binding. Okay, so I got my little backing trimmed, and I also removed the basting pins to get them out of the way. And now we're ready to start the binding. So to start the binding, we have to actually put our little sleeve on first. So give me a second here. We're going to fold our sleeve in half. So I did go ahead and hem these edges here, okay? And then I'm going to fold it in half the short way. So it's about 3 inches long then. And then as you can see, this side is narrower than the other side. So this is going to be the side against the back of the little mini quilt. But I want to find the center of this lengthwise. So I'm just going to fold this in half and find the center here, because we want to make sure we get this pretty centered on the back. So I'm just going to put a pin in there, and then we're going to turn this over to our backing. And I like to match the backing with my sleeves so it doesn't really, stick out so much. And again, the skinnier end side is going to be against the back. So I'm going to put this up. And we know where the center of our little quilt is because we had a center seam down the middle. So that's nice. And I'm going to go ahead and line up my center seam there with my center of my little sleeve here, and then we're just going to pin it on. And that's going to be in the binding then. Oh, and you know what? I forgot one piece. I may have to stop the camera a minute and get it. I always forget this. I'm going to have to do that before we do this. Let me go back for just a second. I'm going to have to go remember we have to put a little piece of Heat and Bond Ultra on here to make this stick down after we're done. So give me a second. I got to go get that, and I'll show you how to put it on. I'll be right back. Okay, I'll show you how this goes on first, and then I will go ahead and do it. So I cut this about 3/4 of an inch wide and about 11 inches long. It's going to need to be trimmed off a little bit. What I've found as I've done some of these, that where the hem is, it doesn't adhere well to the back of the quilt. So I just cut it like in between those hems. So you may have to trim it off when you go to put it on. But we're going to put it down here by this fold. And we're just going to adhere the first part, and this is the Heat and Bond Ultra. So this is the permanent bond, okay? And I'm just going to adhere it down here by this fold and in between the hems. So I'm just going to have to cut this off a little bit. So it only needs to be about 10 inches long maybe. And I'm going to go iron that on, and I'm just going to leave the paper on this side until we get to the end, because I like to put the binding on first and then adhere this down at the end, because it sometimes pulls a little bit. So I like to do it. I like to do it at the end. So I'm going to go do this now. I'm just going to press this on with my iron, cut it off so that it's in between the hems here, and then I'll come back and we'll finish up we'll get our binding on. Okay, so now we can put our sleeve on. So sorry about that. You always think, oh, I know I'm forgetting something, but you just can't do it until you actually get to the point where you know where you forgot it. So anyway, we're going to put this on. I got my center marked again. I'm going to put this in on the center, and then we'll put a couple more pins in here just to hold this in place. And again, the skinnier side is against the back of the little mini quilt. So we'll go ahead and get these pinned on. And there is the Heat and Bond still with the paper on it, on the second side, I should say, on the fold line there. Okay, so let's get this on here, and then I'm going to put a little pin. I'm going to put a couple little pins down here into the back just to keep this from flipping up on me, because with my luck it would flip up on me when I'm doing something else. So we'll just pin this down right here just to keep it from flipping up. If I can get it in there. There it goes. Okay. All right. So now we've got our little sleeve all ready to go. Okay. So now we're going to start the binding. Now I learned to do binding with something called Bind Aid, and I will link that in this video description, in the description right below the video. And this is the way I learned to do binding. It's always worked really well for me. And it's had really good pictures because I've never done continuous binding like this before. All right, so we're going to start down here at the bottom. So I am going to be doing machine binding. I'm going to be sewing the binding on with the sewing machine. So I am going to apply my binding to the back of the little quilt. If you want to do hand binding, you would then apply your binding to the front and flip it to the back and hand stitch it down. I'm going to be using the sewing machine to put my binding on, so I'm going to be applying mine to the back. Okay, so I'm going to get I've got my binding all prepared already and folded and pressed. And we're going to leave a little tail. We need about 6 or 8 inches probably. And we're going to leave a little tail so that I have a little space here. So I'm going to kind of go down here towards the edge of the corner here. Put my foot down. And I'm going to go back to my Q01 or Q02, excuse me, stitch on my machine, which is the 1/4 inch piecing stitch. So here's Q02. I have my length at 2.5, which is my normal length that I use. Okay. So we're going to start kind of down here. I left a little bit. There's maybe 6 or 8 inches down here that'll be loose. We're just going to tie off here. We're going to use our 1/4 inch seam. Just got my J-foot on, and I also switched back to my my Pima cotton thread. I've just got white Pima cotton thread in here. So we're going to go ahead and go to the corner. Now, if you want to mark your corners 1/4 inch, I just eyeball it now. Okay, so you can mark it there with a pencil marking if you want to or whatever. I'm just going to eyeball it, tie off, and cut. So that first one was a very short little seam. And then what I'm going to do is we're going to flip our binding up. Second, it's catching on my leg here. We're going to flip it up to a 45-degree angle like this, and this is the raw edge right here, and I'm going to bring that down and line it up with the other raw edge over on this side. Get the fold right on the edge and line everything up, and then we're going to start up this side with our 1/4 inch seam. I think I got it a little off. Just a second here. There we go. I'm going to drop our needle, tie it off, and then we're going to go up this other side. So we're going to do this all the way around. So it's not hard to put binding on. The pictures on that little bind aid document were so good because they just showed me how to do it. And I just looked at the pictures and read the directions and learned how to do binding. And I've done a lot of binding this way. I've learned to do this machine binding over the years because I don't like to hand stitch. So it may not be for you. You may prefer hand stitching, which is absolutely fine. So but then you would just put your binding on the front instead. All right, so we're going to go up here to the corner. And as usual, I have a seam in my corner. You know, what else is new? So we're going to stop about 1/4 inch from the edge. And of course, I have a seam there. Actually, I might need to go up another stitch. I think I'm a little shy here. There we go. All right, we'll cut that off. We're going to go around the corner again. Now we're going to have a little more bulk over here because that's our little sleeve. Oh, guess what? No sewy. Have you ever had that happen? You get thread in the thread stays in the needle, but it doesn't pick up the bobbin thread, and then the machine doesn't stop. And every now and then that happens. So guess what? We get to do it again. So you needed to you know, sometimes things don't always work out well for me on sewing days either. So today's been one of those days, hasn't it? All right, we'll try this again. It did not sew, did it? All right, let's go back and get our corner up here again. It's always good when I make boo-boos, then you get to see how we can fix them. It's just fine. All right, let's try this again. And it does that occasionally, and I think it's because the bobbin or the thread is still in the needle, so that the little sensor can see the thread, so it doesn't think anything is wrong, and it doesn't pick up the bobbin thread. So it did this time. So we're going to be good. Okay, so we're going to get up here to the end again. 1/4 inch seam. I've had everything happen this morning. That's okay. You guys will forgive me. I know. It happens to all of us, doesn't it? We have a bad sewing day or something doesn't go as well. Sometimes you just got to keep trying. I think I still need one more stitch though. There we go. It's hard to tell kind of where the edge is because of the little sleeve is kind of in the way. All right. Now let's try this again. Oh, look, we got a seam this time. All right, so we're going to flip the corner back, 45-degree angle, line it up with the corner. Okay. Then line my raw edge right straight back down with the raw edge. Okay, get this pin head out of the way. All right, and we'll do this one. So hopefully this one will catch. I think I got the right bobbin case in. I better check. Yeah, I do. Sometimes my tight bobbin case does that. I was surprised it did it with this one. All right. I forget to change my bobbin cases. I try not to. All right, so now we're going to go down this side. So just be careful of your pins. I like to leave them in if I can, just because it keeps things from scooting on me. Get all the way down here. Maybe I'll have one corner that doesn't have a seam in it. It's like Murphy's Law. I have to have a seam in my corner for some reason. Seam from the binding. Okay, so we're going to go down and stop about 1/4 inch away. Okay, that looks about right. And again, you can measure them if you want. I used to measure, but I just kind of judge it by eye now. All right, so now we're going to go do the same thing, up to a 45-degree angle, like that, and then you're going to bring it straight down with raw edges even, like that, and then tie it off and go down the other side. Oh, yay, I won't have a seam in the other one. The seam's going to be in the middle over here. That's good. Okay, let's get this all lined up. Get some of these pins out of here before I stab myself. Okay. Let's get down here. And we're going to stop about 1/4 inch away. And go around the last corner. Okay, that looks about right. Might be a little close. I'm going to take one step back. There we go. And cut. And we're going to go around the other corner. All right. Yeah, I got a little close on this one, but it's not too bad. All right. So get it straight. Get my 45-degree angle and then bring it straight down. Line up my raw edges. There we go. It's quite warm in my sewing room today. It's not real warm outside, so the air conditioner's not running at all, and oh my gosh, it's warm in here. I think it's about 80 degrees in my sewing room. Okay, so we're just going to go around the corner just a little ways because I like to have a little bit of a space in between the two ends when we go to do our little flip. So this is about as far as we're going to go. All right, and we're going to cut that. All right, so we're back to the end. So this is always the part that everybody tells me is their hardest part. So this is where we have to figure out how to do the little flip here, okay? And I'm going to pull back just a little bit so you can see the whole bottom. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to lay, this is the end we just ended with, and I'm just going to lay this down against the bottom of the quilt and just fold it over. And then this is the end that we started with, okay? Now I did get this one a little long, so I actually am going to cut just a little bit of this off. Let's just cut about 1 inch or so off. It'll help us center this up a little bit better. Got a little over exuberant with the first end. Okay, like that. So now what I'm going to find my hem gauge and a marking pen. I think I've got one in here. someplace. Oh, here's one. All right. Okay, so we are going to overlap these. So depending on the size of your binding, like this is 2.5 inch binding. So this is 2.25 inch binding. So I am going to use 2.25 inch overlap. If you are using 2.5 inch binding, you would use a 2.5 inch overlap. So I'm going to measure from the end that we started with. This is where we started, back 2.25 inches, since my binding is 2.25 inches wide, and I'm going to mark that with a pin in the back piece. So I'm going to put the pin in the back piece here, like that. 2.25. That looks about right. So let's just check it. So there's my pin. I'll stick my pin in so it doesn't come out. We'll check it one more time. You want to make sure this measurement's accurate. Otherwise your binding won't lay flat. Okay. I think that looks pretty good. 2.25. So if you had 2.5 inch binding, you're going to use 2.5. So whichever you like better. I like tighter binding, so I always use 2.25. Okay, that looks good. All right, then I'm going to cut this off. So I'm going to take where that pin is. I'm just going to cut this off. Like this. All right. So now we need to do the little flip. And this is the part that always gets everybody confused. But it's not that hard if you think about it. Just think through it slowly. So we're going to start with the left side over here, and I'm going to turn this down at a 45-degree angle. And then this side where we start, this is where we ended. I'm going to open it up with the right side up and the wrong side against the back of the quilt, like this. Okay. Then I'm going to take this piece that we started with, and I'm also going to open it. I'm going to start it open, but I'm going to continue, because I've got it started at a 45-degree angle here. I'm going to continue in the same direction this way. Okay. And what it's going to end up doing is you're going to end up having your folds, like your folds, like where you folded your binding in half, perpendicular to each other. Going to make a cross in the center. Okay. So that's important, that that's how they end up. And I'm going to pin these corners here. And this one's a little stiff. It's a little short, small item, and it's a little stiff, so sometimes it's hard to get the pins in. So I'm going to pin these in and line up all my corners here. Usually put 3 pins in, like this. So here's one seam, and here's the other seam that I folded. So that's how they should be. Okay, and then I'm going to make a mark on my corners so when I go to sew this together, I can see what I'm doing. So we're going to do this here, and that's where the corner is, and then this one I can kind of see, but I'll just mark it just for, it's a little easier then. Okay, so now we're going to switch to Q01, which is the straight stitch in the center. So I can sew these together, because we need to sew from corner to corner to sew our binding together. Okay, so I'm going to lay this all flat, and that's why I like to leave a nice tail here so that we can get it flat. It's a little hard when these are small and stiff. Okay, so we're going to get this lined up. I'm going to start on my mark there, put my little notch that we've been using right on my mark, and I'm going to sew straight across. And you can draw the line all the way across if you want. I usually just eyeball it, but if you want to draw the line, just draw a line with your ruler and go to the other mark, like that. Okay. I used to draw the line, but I just kind of eyeball it now. So I'll take these all out. And then I like to lay it down flat just to make sure everything is correct before I start cutting. So it's always a good thing to do before you start cutting is to do that. And then I'm going to cut this bulk out of here. Cut it about a 1/4 inch, seam there. Then we're going to finger press it open, maybe. Here we go. And I'm going to lay it flat. And then I like to pin. So I like to pin this last little seam shut so that I know it's going to lay flat for me. So we're just going to pin this little bit, and then we'll stitch this together. And then we'll be ready to do the zigzagging. So I zigzag my binding on the front. You can use a straight stitch if you like, but the zigzag works better for me. I actually get a straight stitch then. And we're going to use monofilament, I think, for that. All right, so we'll get this on here. I'm going to go back to Q02 so I can finish my 1/4 inch seam. And we'll stitch this on. There's your binding. Can you believe? It takes some practice. I'm not going to lie. I've been doing a lot of binding for a long time, so it has taken me practice to get this down. But that little document really helped me. I used to get it out every time I put binding on, so I could see the pictures that I was doing all of this little flip at the end correctly and doing the corners correctly. And I don't have to do it anymore because I've done so many bindings. All right, so we're going to go up here to where the other pin is, and we're going to cut off, tie off and cut off, and voila, we have binding. So now we're going to get ready to do the front. So give me a second here. So what you want to do now is you want to go, and the trick with doing machine binding is we want to have a very crisp press along the binding here. So I'm going to go up to my iron and I'm going to press this out so that I have a very crisp seam along the back here. Make sure you get up into your corners, okay, all the way around. So that's the key to getting nice binding. So do that, and then I will be back in a moment and we will put the binding down. So we're getting close to being done. Isn't this fun? I'll be right back. Okay, so the next step is I'm going to show you how to do those beautiful corners on the corners. I've done a few of them already, so you don't have to sit here and watch me put pins in the corner, but I'll do one for you. So this is the next step. So I don't really pin anything except the corners. So I've got my corner pinned here to get that beautiful 45-degree angle corner, okay? So how I do that is I'm going to, oops, second here. I am going to use 2 clover clips, one on each side of my corners. So I usually use 8 clover clips on any quilt, even the great big ones. So I just finished a great big one not too long ago, and I just used 8 clover clips. So I'm going to do my clips on either corner just to hold it in place for me. Then I can see where my stitching line is here for my binding. So I'm going to put my glasses on here so I can see a little better since it's all the same color. I'm going to grab a pen, and I'm going to make sure my binding is coming the fold of my binding is coming just up to that seam line. And I'm going to put my thumb on the right-hand side up into the corner, and I am going to press it into a 45-degree angle up here, okay? Then I'm going to pull this down to the other side of the corner here, okay? And of course I picked the corner that had the seam in it. You know how it goes. And I'm going to put my pin in to hold this corner in place like that. And that's the one that even has the seam in it, and that looks pretty good. So there is how you do the seam. So you put your thumb up the right-hand side, make a 45-degree angle on your binding and pull it down and line up your seam lines right here, and you have this beautiful 45-degree angle. And I've already done all my other ones here. That's how I did it. I've got a clip on either side, and I've got my pin in holding my corner. Take your time doing that. It's a little tricky, but once you get it, so push your thumb up on the right-hand side and then pull the left-hand side down and make your corner. And it looks perfect when you get it in there. So that is the corners. So now we're ready for zigzagging. All right, so I've also switched back to my monofilament. Since this binding has 2 colors in it, it works better to do a monofilament because then it doesn't show on any of it really. You will see a little bit of the stitch, but I like to use monofilament unless I have thread that is very, very matchy to my fabric, and since there's several fabrics around here and my binding is multiple colored, I'm going to use monofilament. So that's how I kind of go. I like my thread. I can use matchy thread, which works fine, but I like to use monofilament if it's too colored, or if it's not, don't have anything that matches. Okay, so we're going to go back to the number 1 tab here on my luminaire, and I'm going to use a zigzag stitch to put this down. So what I'm going to choose, I've got mine set up and saved in my machine on 1-10, which is one of the zigzags. There's 2 zigzags, 1-9 and 1-10. My settings that I use for binding are 2 millimeters for the width and 1.4 for the length. So it's pretty narrow, and then it's just a little longer to get me so that it doesn't have as many stitches. But this seems to work well for me. I can catch my edges, and I get it to look nice and straight. Okay, so 2.0 for width and 1.4 for the length. But just a standard zigzag. Okay, so we're going to come back over here to my quilt, and I'm not going to start in the corner. I've got my monofilament in my needle and my bobbin, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my binding right up to my seam line that I sewed it on, and I can see my white thread here. Okay, and I'm going to, remember that little notch we've been using for stitching in the ditch? I'm going to lay that little notch, and I'm using the J-foot again, right on the edge of my binding. The trick is we want the right zig to be on the binding, and we want the left zag to be just off the binding. Okay, so that's how you know you're getting it right. So I'm just going to hold that binding right up to that seam line, and I'm going to start zigzagging. So the right side is on the binding and the left side is off the binding. And I'm just going to zigzag up into the corner here. If you kind of spread your fingers out, it holds your binding down nicely. And just bring that folded edge right up to the seam line. And you can see it. That's where we sewed the binding on. That's why you want a really nice, very crisp press on the back. Okay, so I'm getting up here to the corner. Now, I like to take my fingernail and kind of pull back on the corner, and then it straightens out my binding up to the corner. And just a second here, I'm getting stuck on my book. Move my book out of the way here. There's a hole behind my machine. I have the embroidery unit on, so there's a little hole in the back. And then this little quilt's not very big, so it goes right down the hole. There we go. All right, so I'm going to zigzag up into the corner and leave that pin in there so that you've got it, it won't move and give you a icky corner. Okay, so then when I turn around, the trick is, and I did pretty well this time, we want that notch to be right on the edge of the binding again. So it looks like I did pretty well. Let's see how we did here. I'm going to put my foot down. Ooh, that looks pretty good. So then I'm going to continue out of the corner. Just leave that pin in there. And I'm going to continue right out of the corner. Right hand zig is on the binding, and the left hand zag is off the binding, all the way to the corner. And I've gotten so I can do this pretty quickly now. You know, don't hurry if you're having trouble getting it lined up and everything. Just take your time. And I've gotten so I can do this pretty fast now. And you know, I do have some problems sometimes with the corners. So let's see how I do on this corner. I may overjudge it so you can see how I fix it. So we'll do the second corner here. Second. Having a little trouble getting this one to lay flat. There we go. Oops, I'm caught on my embroidery unit. I usually take it off when I sew bigger things, but I sew and embroider so much at the same time that I don't like to remove the embroidery unit. Because sometimes 5 minutes later I have to be embroidering. So, all right, so I'm going to line this up. Keep zigzagging. The right hand zigs on the binding. The left hand zag is off the binding, just off the edge. Okay. And then I'm going to go up into the corner. So I'm going to put my fingernail in that little crevice there and keep that straight. And zigzag right up into the binding. Oh, I'm going to pull my pin up a little bit. Right up into the corner. All right. Now if you get off, like I might be off this time, I am. So if you are off when you get in the corner and your notch, like my notch is over to the right, I want it to the left. So I'm going to put my foot down. I'm going to raise my needle, and then I'm going to just raise my presser lever a little bit and adjust over. Drop my needle back down before I do anything else, and then I can adjust that corner. So I do that. I have to do that quite often. I don't usually get them right the first time. I was lucky on the first corner. So then I'm going to go down this way. We'll do another corner. I know people like to see the binding. Everybody does binding differently, and I just kind of learned this as I've been going, and it seems to work for me. I like the zigzag because I could never get the straight stitching to look straight. It always looked funny on the back to me. So this you don't really notice, and it also stays straighter for some reason. I don't know if it's the zigzag or what, but when I try a straight stitch, I never do very well. So if straight stitching works for you for binding, please do what works for you. All right, so we're going to go up the corner here. Okay, I'm going to put my fingernail in that little crevice again in the corner just to hold everything flat for me. And I'm leaving my fold right on my sewing line. We're going to zigzag into the corner. Right into the corner. Let's see how we did that this time. All right, well, I'm a little off this time as well, so I'm going to put my foot down. I'm going to raise my needle. I'm going to slide, just raise my presser lever and slide over so I'm lined up with my notch on the edge of my binding. Okay, and then put my needle back down before I start, because that way I know I'm in the right spot that I want to be. Let's get this out of here and come out of the corner. All right, so I'm going to turn the camera off for a minute. I'll do the other corner and go around, and I'll show you how to finish this. And then we will finish putting our little towel on, and we'll be done. So give me just a moment, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've made it around the last corner, and I wanted to show you how I end these. I've got a pin right where I started. The trick with the zigzagging is you don't want to take too many stitches like overlapping each other, because you can kind of see that. So I'm just going to try to take about one stitch or so over. So I've got a pin down there to help me know where to stop. I'm just finishing up. Right hand zig on the binding, left hand zag off. So then we'll get down here, and I'm just going to take about one stitch over my pin, I think. There we go. And then I'm going to tie off so we don't overlap too much. You don't want that to show. And then let me take that off. Take our pins out. Look at there. I'll show you what it looks like with the monofilament. I mean, the monofilament works really well for a lot of stuff, and I use it quite often, especially if my binding has more than one color in it, because it's hard then, otherwise. But look, there's our little binding. I hope you can see it. I can't see because I got my glasses on. But there's our binding, and you can see where the binding, the stitches are, but they don't really show. And here's the back, and then see, it's nice and up right on the edge of the binding here. I really like that. So I do much better with the zigzag for some reason than I do with the straight stitch, because I never got my straight stitch looking nice. It was always all over the place and it looked weird. So there's our little mini quilt. So now the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to turn the camera off one more time, and then we'll finish it off. But we're going to finish off our little towel and put it in our bag. And then I'm going to go press my little I'm going to take my paper off of my little sleeve up here and press this down. And then I'm also going to take, and I found that this works best for me, is I'm going to take a needle and thread and just put a stitch in each corner, because these were kind of bulky and they didn't want to adhere well with the heat and bond. So I just adhere the center part with the heat and bond, and then I put a little stitch just with some white thread. I'm just going to take some white thread and put a stitch on each corner just to hold it down. And then I'll be back in a minute. We'll do our little towel and finish off our little mini quilt. Okay, so we're going to finish up our little towel here. I've got my glue gun because it told me again to fold it in half. So I'll turn this out so you can see. So I folded it in half the long way. So this way was 5 inches, and so I folded it in half so it's 2.5 when it's done. You took a 1/4 inch seam at the top and the bottom in this step right here, and then the next step said to turn it right side out and press. So that's what I've done here, and there's going to be one open side, and that's fine. So then it says to roll the fabric on the diagonal so the folded edge is on the top of the roll. The folded edge of the fabric will roll down around the body of the towel. Hand sew or glue the folded end of the towel to maintain its shape. Okay, so we're going to have the fold on the left here. That's what the picture shows over here. I don't know if you can see it very well. Pull this way so you might be able to see. So this one, the fold's over here and the open end is on this side. And so we're going to kind of roll it this way. Diagonally it says. I'm going to roll it up so that this open seam is going to stay at the bottom. Tuck the completed towel into the bag or on the beach bag or on the beach bag block, and you can hand sew it or glue that in place as well. So we're just going to kind of roll this up and make make it look like a beach towel. I'm not sure if I'm liking that. Let's try that from this side. Let's see if I can go this way. So we just want to make sure we leave that open. That open is going to be down inside the bag. So that's why they just left it open to make it easier. Okay, so there's our little towel. So it looks pretty good. And we can put that on the bottom like that. And I think I'll just put some glue in here just to hold this together. So let's put a little hot glue in there just to hold this together. Maybe we'll go a little higher too, I'm not sure. Maybe a little higher too. Might put a little bit up at the top here. Just to hold this shut. You could stitch it too if you wanted to. Well, that looks better. Yeah, that'll work. And then we'll put the seam on the bottom, like underneath. Okay, so then let's get our little block up here. And then we're going to tuck it down inside the bag, like that. So then our little beach towel will just hang out of the bag, like that. What do you think? I think that looked good. So I think I'm going to put a little bit of glue in there. Let's just put a little bit of glue at the bottom so that it will just kind of tuck in there. I'll open this up. There. I'm going to have it kind of tip over like that. There you go. That way it won't come out. There's our little towel. What do you think? I like that. Very cute. So you just roll it up and glue it a little bit so it stays in your bag. Perfect. Okay, so give me a second. I'm going to put this up in the frame so you can see what it looks like hanging in my little frame. And then we will have completed our August mini quilt. So just a moment, I'll be right back. Okay, so before I reveal the hanging August mini quilt, this is the September mini quilt. Isn't this cute? It's a pretty fall one. Looks like it has quite a lot of blocks in it. So this is the one we'll do about the 1st of August. So I'll have to see if I can find some cute fabrics for that because it's also so pretty with the fall colors. So that's the one for September that we'll do in the first week of August or so. And then here's our little August mini quilt. So here is our mini quilt in the frame, all ready to go for August. So isn't that darling? I love the colors, and the little bag is so cute with the towel sticking out of the top. So I think that one was a really fun one to do, and it didn't take too long. It didn't have a lot of blocks, so it was just really fun. So thank you so much for joining me for the August Kimberbell Mini Quilt, and I will see you then next month for the September one. And again, if you enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up on YouTube. It really helps me. And also, if you haven't subscribed to Sew Along with Jan on YouTube, I would love you to come subscribe. And also, if you would like to join my Facebook group, it's also called Sew Along with Jan. So please come visit us on YouTube or on Facebook as well and join Sew Along with Jan there. So thank you so much for joining me, and have a great day.